Today's session is Use Powerful Print Production Analytics for Higher Profitability. It is my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today, Andy Brent, Product Line Manager. So with that, Andy, let's get going. It's all yours.
All right. Thank you, Gail. I appreciate it. So to get started, let's walk through the agenda first. We're going to start with an introduction to the power of analytics. We're going to start really high. Just what are analytics? Talk a little bit about our kind of innate mindset, how we resist that trusted advisor, and then move on to analytics in a different industry, and pretty quickly move to analytics, how they apply to the print industry, move on to the end-to-end workflow, show you where the analytic product suite fits in the ecosystem of products that are available out there. Talk just a bit about Fiery Navigator. Disclaimer, my team builds that product, so I want you to make you aware of it. And then we're going to move on to the general discussion of device management and analytics. We'll focus on these 4 areas and give you a real business sense of why it's important, hopefully uncover some things that you weren't aware of, give you some challenge things to think of, and leave here with an idea that there's some things about your business that you hadn't considered and frankly may have the wrong impression of. As Yale said, we'll end with a Q&A session, and before we go to the next slide, let's just pause a bit. If you haven't finished your survey questions, if you could do that, that will help us tailor the presentation a bit at the end.
Yeah, so I've opened up the poll. There are 4 questions total. Take a minute to give us your input. We'll refer back to these later in the presentation. All right, so as you're finishing up the poll, Andy will take us through the rest of the presentation.
So we're going to start device management and analytics. We're going to talk about how a good device management and analytic tool is going to show you what you're doing. There's a lot of tools out there that'll tell you how many clicks you've printed, and we're going to talk about more in depth. That's great information, but a little more detail about what you're doing. How you're doing. This is a tricky one. We mentioned earlier about our innate mindset. If you're wired like I am, you tend to surround yourself unintentionally with like-minded people. Quick little brain exercise if you're a sports fan. Picture your favorite football team, a table of people all wearing the jersey of your favorite football team, one empty seat at the table, your hated rivals at another table. Where do you sit? Bit of a trick question. You sit at the Steelers table. Actually, Yale just said everybody from Baltimore just hung up. But the point is, we do tend to seek out just naturally people we associate, people who run similar businesses, people who confirm, give us a bit of an echo chamber of what we believe to be true. And so one of the great powers of a device management analytic product is it helps you get that trusted advocate, sometimes the contrary opinion. One of the, my favorite things of this industry is that who knew moment. When you know something, you've just believed it for a long time, and you look at the data and realize that actually is not correct. It's exciting, a little bit frightening at times, and so just again, the key to these tools, what you're doing, very specifics. We'll talk about how you were doing. Importantly, where to improve. And so that is, we'll talk that as we go, but it's, not only how am I doing, there's sometimes you can get information to say, well, you could be doing better here. You're not making as much money as you should. Production is dropping off, but where do I start? And then how do I do that? What are the steps that will help me? All of this we're going to talk about with an eye towards maximizing the return on your printer and workflow investment. So let's move on. The power of analytics. Any good discussion should of course start with a race car. So with this analogy, as I go through it, think about how it relates to your print shop. I'll give you the first one for free. The driver would be the operator of your press. There is some heads-up display information here. If I had to write it down, if I had to say I drove this many miles this week, my odometer wouldn't be accurate. And so as we look at analytics as the industry, there is information that's gathered that just helps you operate, just helps you drive the vehicle, run the machine. And then the next stage of analytics of running your business is there is some information you can take action on. There are some alerts. There's information that a driver could choose to ignore. I think I've driven the last 3 months with my out of fluid indicator going. There's also a group of messages that an operator will see, and they'd better take action. If you don't do something, you're soon not going to be able to operate this equipment. You're not going to be able to drive. Moving on, the next category of information, it moves beyond operator serviceable. I can put fuel in the tank, I can put air in my tire, but boy, when that battery light comes on, unless you're a really good backyard mechanic, it's just something that you can't fix. With your copier analogy, there are things where it's time to get service. You talk to your service person, the manufacturer, and so you get an idea of not only the information, here's what you've done, but here's some action you can take, some actionable data on what's going on. These last few have kind of focused on the operator, the person who is running this equipment. But what about you? What about the business owner? Just a side note here, I can tell you from personal experience, I've got 4 driving age children, and these people are probably about 39 years old. But what if I could take that data? What if I could take that driving history and I could look at things like, how long is my daughter, how much did she drive this last month? How often does she drive above the speed limit? How often does she drive with 1/8 of a tank or less in the fuel tank? Who drove the most? How often does my son drive without a seatbelt? Who drives the most miles? Who gets the best gas mileage? You get an idea. And so obviously the analogy, the adult supervisor here, the owner of this business, there is a way of building tools that give you information about not only the operators, the equipment that's being managed. So hopefully the analogy is pretty clear. Let's talk just a little bit about the end-to-end workflow. So we're going to transition to print here, and so talk about production versus device management. So one of the questions I'm asked is, I don't get it. You're talking about print management. Doesn't my MIS do that? And so if you look at this chart, you'll see on the left a production management and automation representation. These are most tools from EFI and other companies, software products geared towards maximizing your throughput through your workflow. So through your shop, through your order entry system, your data delivery, it's really geared towards maximizing production. On the other side, the focus of our talk today, device management and analytics, really zero in on, am I being efficient? Am I running my investment in my copiers to maximize my revenue? Are my operators doing the right thing? My consumables? And so keep that picture in mind. We're going to take one more run at it here to give you a better look at what we're talking about. If you've been to very many EFI presentations, you've seen the ecosystem here. You've got some web-to-print order entry software, really focused on acquisition. Like a lot of things in the print industry, there is some gray area, there's some overlap. Does a web-to-print care about the devices? Absolutely. Who can fulfill this order? But is it looking at optimizing the device experience? Is my DFE being maximized for the best performance? No, it's not. Boy, when I get to the print MIS, certainly there are tools for optimization, scheduling, routing, billing, tracking, very powerful software. If you have an MIS, you can run your company by the MIS. What the print management analytics software does is it really focuses on downstream. Once the job has been scheduled, is the machine, is the DFE configured for maximum output? Are your operators doing the right decisions once that job is delivered to the digital front end? The DFE, configured to manage a single device, most commonly, you can export log files. You can look at the data. You can bring them into an Excel spreadsheet. You can combine them with other exports from other digital front ends, and you can program the cell to get some information. But just as a mental exercise, try to picture how many black and white clicks you've printed on your color engine last August, and then compare that with what you did in August 2015. So you get an idea of, even though the information is there, it's pretty hard to get to. So what we're going to talk about today, this section right here. So we'll pause just a minute and take a look at that. Our focus is the digital front end and the print equipment behind it. So if we turn that just a bit and add a new component, if you look at the device management and analytics, this is the piece we will talk about that gathers information from both the digital front end and the printers. It's shown here in the cloud. It could be in the cloud. It could run inside your network. That's not a condition of being an analytics product. Certainly makes it a little easier if you can gather information from anywhere, store it in the cloud and act on it. But just so you have a good idea, this is what we're going to zero in on. As I mentioned, we're going to make a brief stop at Fiery Navigator. And so Fiery Navigator, as I mentioned, the product that my team builds, I'm not going to give you a demo of it, but if you would look at the website, and so I'm taking a look at the poll information here. I actually see that there is a good number of you that have, actually the majority, 3 or fewer Firies. Quite a few of you didn't answer. But for the ones of you that have 3 or fewer Firies, it is a free product, Fiery Navigator. Go to the website. One of the things we've done is to try to make it easy to try out. And so if you go to the demo sessions, the piece that's highlighted on the left, if you go to that website, click fully populated database. You can play with all the features. These are the real features you'll be getting if you download this product and use it. And then if you want to gather more information, Diliana, our product line manager, has put together a lot of information at fierynavigator.com or efi.com/fierynavigator. You know, one other poll question, I'm going to pause here for a minute, is, you know, how much of your business comes from print? And this one actually surprises me a bit because it's spread all over. And so whether you are a customer who has just printing is your lifeblood, that's all you do. If you know your printers better than your own children, perhaps, and maybe this is something that you just do a little bit of. I met with a customer a while back that said they do 10% of their business from print, but that's where they have to grow to be viable. And I asked them how much time they spent on print, and they said, boy, I wish it was 10%. And so the focus of what we're going to talk about in the rest of this session is, you know, what do we do? What tools are available to make it easier to get that information? So the person who can spend 10% or the person has to optimize everything because print is their life, how can we make that actionable data easier to get to at their fingertips? Looking at measuring efficiency, and so to wrap up the last 2 poll questions, how do you look at efficiency today? And so the clear majority is you look at Command Workstation. Very close second is looking at the counters on the print device. And so really a production focused workflow and kind of what we expected because that's just what you have. And so not too many people use an analytics product, and there was a full 10% that answered honestly and said, you know, I just don't. So that's great information for me. Fits into the presentation, thankfully. And so again, how do you measure efficiency of your staff and equipment? There was a pretty close tie. So a lot of people are doing a gut feel. Historical volume comparisons. I worked with a lot of customers that export the job log, they save that, they manage it themselves. Some of them never clear a job log. And so it matches up with what we're seeing before. And the tie here between historical comparisons is I just don't. And so that's good. We've got a good topic for today. So if we look at measuring efficiency, some of the answers, you know, you hope for the best. And so that fits a couple of answers we saw. We do over-the-shoulder monitoring. And so as we talked about, part of this conversation will be, are there things that I believe about my business today that just aren't true? Do I see a lot of frantic activity? Everyone's always moving. Are they, you know, am I running very efficiently? or is there some other reason? How do you measure efficiency? Well, you can always have eyes as far as having a stopwatch and seeing what's going on. You can rely to a historical snapshot, your job log export, command workstation view, and use a spreadsheet. And then you can use a device management and analytics tool. Again, the focus is taking that actionable data that challenges your assumptions, the things that you thought were true, that who knew moment. This is the way I thought, and something I see now, the trusted advisor is telling me that's actually not what's happening in your business. So that we're going to talk about the categories of data. We're going to spend some time on equipment. We've got a couple slides. We'll move to people, again with an eye of what can you look for using device management analytics to optimize your equipment efficiency, how your people interact, tools for them, tools for you as a manager, a focus on jobs. What benefit can I get from these tools, from the things that are coming in this industry segment, and then we'll end off with consumables. So with equipment, we've got 3 slides, and those slides will be split into one for monitoring and one for configuration. And so with our monitoring, we will look at just basically what's happening on the device, and we're going to drill down a bit more than just the clicks, the counters, and then the configuration, how am I set up, and what implication does that have for my business. So starting with monitoring, there's the tracking counts. And so this is, there's a lot of quick readers on the market, but it's more than that. Do you know how much you're producing on your most expensive versus your least expensive device? Are you aware of your seasonal peaks? Did this holiday season surprise you? Were you properly staffed? Finisher usage. This is something that, we talked about the MIS and the analytics product differences for device management analytics. In MIS, for your finisher usage, this is a saddle stitch job. Absolutely a great tool for routing to the correct finisher to determine, should I print this job with a manual finishing, a manual staple, based on the cost of that labor, or should I use the inline stapler? I worked with a customer a while back that said, I'm getting ready to renew my lease. Actually don't even know how often I use that stapler. Do I really perfect bind a lot? So just the basic information if you're getting ready to, to renew your lease. To detect failures. Think of the red flashing light on your digital front end. So to detect that on one place, that's very useful. There's a lot of equipment out there to do that. But how about across a fleet of devices to detect failure? How much time was spent last quarter in user serviceable events, such as a paper jam, or something that required a actual equipment service person to come check on your equipment. Utilization and capacity. How often are you in an idle state? How much production increase can you anticipate if you put on another shift? It's getting time to buy another device. What do you buy? I met with a customer a while back that was using our equipment. They were using some of our inkjet equipment, and they said, look, we've got 3 shifts. I get good reports as far as it looks like we're running at capacity, everyone's happy. I really wouldn't know that other than interviewing personally my operators. And so they were looking for an aggregate tool that would say, well, here are your peaks, here are your valleys. You're running at, 30% capacity versus 90% capacity. You can either work weekends, you don't have room to put on another shift, so if you purchase another device, this much would give you capacity based on your current volume. We're going to move in a bit, some of the kind of rubber meets the road, the first 4 items. There's certainly solutions in the market today. Environmental monitoring, so we're also going to talk a bit about the vision, some of the evolving things in the market. We're all told that calibration is required more often, sometimes in more humid environments, higher temperatures. What if we could track that? What if we plotted the environmental monitoring and could say, well, based on your humidity, based on your heat, we recommend this calibration schedule. What if we could anticipate failures based on your conditions, based on the operation of your equipment? And then place a service call. I worked with one of our larger customers a while back that said, you know, we've got standard operating procedure for these conditions that they need to take action and send an email for service, but they just don't have time. Is there a way that you can track and picture the triggers here of thinking of a condition over a device and then taking an action? If a human can view it on the computer screen and then send an email, that's something that we ought to be able to automate. So shifting to the last slide of equipment, the configuration. So we're going to start with backup and save my settings. We have, again, some of the products we've built for some of our larger customers. I was at a trade show thinking, well, this isn't going to apply to the smallest customer. A gentleman walked up, he had a single printer. And so I was talking about some of our fleet deployment tools for capturing a configuration and pushing it out to similar fireys in the fleet. And he said, oh, I wish I would have had this last week because we had a service tech come in, re-image my firey. I lost all of my settings, lost my spot color tables, my media, my everything I'd done for that device. And so, you know, whether you're a large customer, you know, a bigger customer, you know, it's like backups, you know, on your computer. It just gets away from us. And so, you know, is there a way that we can leverage our device configuration to make it easier? So when that unexpected happens, I can get back. And then, as we mentioned, to restore settings, whether it's across the fleet, store to store. If you're in the position, whether you're a reseller, whether you are an owner of multiple configurations, to be able to physically visit each of those and set up that configuration. And then some of the seasonal changes. I mentioned earlier in the presentation that if you have a holiday season profile set, if you've ever been in the position, well, where did those go? Or who changed that profile? It doesn't seem like we're printing the same Christmas red as we were last time this year. And then compliance monitoring. So what we mean by compliance is, am I running that same profile set that I was last year? Is my patch level the same at this store as the next store? Work with a customer that has 9 floors of fireys they're managing, and so they're really at the whim of their service rep, making sure that they keep the same configuration on each server. What happens if that 9-floor configuration is 9 different cities? And then the recommended configuration based on usage. Like the other slide, we're starting to go into some of the fun evolving technologies. If you've got the big data database of this is what someone is you know, the industry average of what people are doing, but kind of where the rubber meets the road, how does that apply to my configuration? And so to be able to make recommendations based on your usage patterns. And then after that, the auto configuration. I worked with a customer a while back that had some of our automated software, but instead of using the web to print auto submission, they were manually clicking jobs. For a saddle stitch special media job, they were using 57 clicks instead of 2. What if we could look at that situation and create that template for them, create that profile, and make those recommendations? So some of the way the industry is going. That kind of wraps up our 2 slides on equipment. I hope at this point you think a little bit about, you know, maybe some of those affect you. Maybe there was something that said, wow, I hadn't thought of that. Maybe I have a wrong assumption here. Or some questions you can ask your partners to keep us accountable, your other vendors, your suppliers, you know, questions you can ask them as you look to improve, grow your business. As we said, moving from equipment to people, we're going to spend 3 slides on this. Talk about the productivity alerts, the tools that are available today and things that are emerging to help your people, your operators be more productive. And then also the reporting, you know, for the adult supervision in our earlier slide, for the owner-operator, some things that will help them help their people be more productive. So starting with people, the productivity alerts, notifying your staff of production blocking events. The light on you see on the right today, I was actually printing something this morning and saw a red light flashing on one of the engines. Worked with a customer earlier that wanted to, on our Fiery product, wanted to help us with a toolkit so they could program conditions into a light stand, an and light stand like the one on the right, so someone could line of sight in a big print floor, see what was going on the different engines. You know, at the time, even before I worked on some of the products that EFI builds, I thought there just has to be a better way than line of sight. Another example, I was at a trade show, and the operator was sharing with me when she goes home in the evening, she always tries to queue up 3 or 4 long jobs that can print. And invariably, when it's an important series of jobs, when she gets to the parking lot, it jams, and she finds out the next morning. So to be able to get that alert, that buzz on the phone that says, hey, there's a production blocking event. Another customer who was in the mailroom servicing those 9 floors of printers, saying, I'm spending my time, my staff's time chasing printers. I have some graphic artists, and they don't report problems. If there's a problem on a printer, they just move to the next one. And so we were talking to them about, wow, how many extra printers do you think you own just to cover the in-it jam state? How many extra people in your mailroom staff do you think are there just to chase conditions? Let me go to the 3rd floor to see if anything there is jammed. Let me take my digital front end and connect one at a time to these engines. So give you this idea of something that will help the staff be more productive. Goal setting and tracking. Boy, if you like to jog, you like to track your steps, think of the Fitbit example. Some positive reinforcement. Hey, here's how many steps you've taken. Today was a record. So to give your self-motivated employees a way to set a goal from month to month, day to day, track with what you did last week. To be able to set configurable triggers, preemptive alerts. We talked about our mailroom staff chasing copier conditions. What if we could help with hey, you're getting low on toner. So this is something that is going to come up. To be able to set a ready-to-print limit. I worked with a customer, one of our larger customers, who had a job submission program. So they had a piece of software that would submit jobs into the print queue across the fleet. Well, there was an error in the software that brought down the job scheduling, and it happened at about 2 in the morning, and at about 1 o'clock the next afternoon across the fleet, operators were running out of jobs. Another customer I spoke with said, things happen. My staff isn't just a print staff, so I want them to keep about 4 hours of print-ready jobs in the queue, so when something does happen, they don't run out of gas. Basically our 1/8 fuel tank example. And so something they can set up to say, hey, you're running low, you're getting low on fuel here, and pop up a message, you need to get some more material in the queue, some more jobs ready to print. And then schedule quality checks. We have a joke about, if you ask, any operator in the world, do you calibrate on a schedule like you're supposed to? Only one answer's ever been given. Why, yes, we do. But what if we had an alert to pop up to say, hey, it's time to check that. And then moving to the things we have for you if you're an owner. So some of the things, taking a step back to be able to monitor the time that you are paying operators to when there's a paper jam, and not necessarily, they may not be out smoking cigarettes, ignoring it. It very well could be something that they don't have line of sight to. They're not logged in, connected to that device. We talked about the Fitbit example of being able to set production goals as an operator, but sometimes you need coaching to be able to set that up and monitor it a little bit. To track the use of automation, we talked about the who knew moments a bit. Worked with a customer who spent a great deal of money on an automated workflow, and then when we analyzed what was actually happening in their fleet, they were spending the majority of jobs were submitted with file print. And so the jobs would flow through the system, they would get to the digital front end, they would double click, open them, and retype options. They would go into the web to print and open them. And so just by seeing that, it changed their business. It changed the way that they got the return on investment in their automated workflow. Just kind of a mantra with these types of efficiency monitors: if you can measure it, you can improve it. Standard operator procedure compliance. You know, you can think of my example before with the kids. Just like calibration, if I ask my kids if they go the speed limit, there's just one answer: yes. If I've got a tool that shows, well, I can see here that actually you're speeding, boy, the conversation goes away. They're actually, if they get those alerts, they're empowered to know, I better perform to what I'm expected to do here. Shift comparisons. If you had the ability to compare one shift to another, if you could look at your highs and lows to see that there was a dip from 10 to 11:30 every morning. So these are the type of things that you can be asking for, that ask for your suppliers. Just a lot of great movement in the industry on some of these people management, productivity management solutions. So moving on to jobs. So we mentioned earlier, there are a lot of solutions for just getting the clicks. How many jobs have I printed? But we're going to take a little closer look at what's available, what is becoming available in two classifications. Performance, really the throughput. Am I getting a lot of material, a lot of blank pages turned into paying product? And then classifications, things for you to be aware of as far as your job mix. Different. We're going to drill down on a few examples there. And so when we look at performance, I like to start with your mileage may vary. We've probably all had the experience of being in the showroom and getting a picture of what my performance will be on something we purchased, in this case a car, and then getting it home, when the rubber meets the road, when you're actually driving it, operating it, and think, wow, it must be running it differently here. To find out what you're doing on your job mix. Two quick examples. I worked with a bookbinder, and he really, had a good handle on what they were printing. They purchased a single digital printer, and they were going to just do it to proof some jobs to their offset. And what they did was, once they got it, they found out instead of just proofing, they started pushing more and more jobs to their digital device. And at the time, he was saying, they tell me if a job is 3,000 pages or less, I should go digital. I think I can get them to 4. And so what he was doing was, he was saying, even though that the recommendation was a 3,000 page job, he should send it to his digital, he was pushing the limits. His performance was actually higher than expected. I've worked with another customer, and this is not quite as a happy story. We were talking about all the great things that software could do for him. And we were talking great synergy with the management team, and I noticed the operator was getting more and more agitated through the conversation. And so at one point, when we're talking about all this great stuff that this product was going to do for him, he finally stood up and said, "You want to help me? I'll tell you how to help me. Just quit blanking helping me," and cussed out his management staff and ran out of the room. And so my first thought was, best meeting ever. And then I went and found him. And it was just so interesting for me. Something I've really taken home is, we can talk about the software and all these productivity gains, people assist we can put in, but really where the operators are running it, where it's really your product, your mileage, this is one of the great things about these device management analytic tools, that it does help you to find out, well, how does that apply to me? Where does it make a difference for my product, my running environment? So how do I look at month-to-month comparisons based on my production? Seasonal peaks that we talked about, device comparisons. How is one group doing to another, one specific device? How am I doing to peers? So some of the future things that many people in the industry are looking at, as for someone of your size, we know what the average is, and how are you doing on it? How can we set goals for that? So moving from the performance, again, to drill down a bit on the classifications, the most common job type. I'm going to throw in another example here. When we look at the most common job type, a bit of a funny story. I work for a company that we had two products. We made a digital front end for a Macintosh, and we actually are one of the first ones that built a Mac clone. Our digital front end product was wildly successful. Our Mac clone wasn't. Every clone was about 6 months late to market. We didn't have the volumes of Apple, so we couldn't get the same prices. We lost $200 on every clone we shipped. One of us in the meeting one time said, boy, I've got a solution. Whenever someone orders one of these, we're going to say, you can't have it, hang up the phone, and mail them $100. Both of us make $100. We don't lose $200, they get $100. But for your product, you're thinking, how does this apply to me? Your products are your jobs. And so instead of thinking of your job, you're selling a saddle stitch product. Many of you actually know this very well because that's how you advertise it. But I think there's a good mix still that, boy, the jobs come in, the operator takes them through an email or they write it down from a verbal order, and you really don't know what your job types are. So when I joked about my experience of we had two products, one wildly successful, one that just about brought the company down, perhaps you've got the same job mix. You've got wildly successful ones that you don't know which ones you're printing the most of. And so to be able to track that information, tracking the clicks to produce, whether you're automating it like you should, or once you get that job that's well scheduled from an MIS, what your operators do once they get it. Job and file size metrics, working with a customer who was printing a huge volume. What they found out was they were printing a huge volume of one-page jobs. And they found out that their print production was fine, but their cost of acquiring that order from a customer, from entering it into the system, was eating them up. So they would be able to charge a higher fixed price for the job, and then they could take advantage of, once a larger volume job came along, they could offer some discounts. Another customer using some analytic tools, able to plan their network upgrade. They were looking at, we're going to automate our distributed fleet, but wow, we can see that based on the job size, first we better buy a better router. Tracking things like black and white pages on a color device. Do you know how many black and white pages that you sent to your color device last quarter? If you know the price between your black and white and your color click count, do you know how much that cost you? Do some jobs err more than others? Is there a pattern you can look for and perhaps do some pre-flight on those jobs? And you've got jobs that are reprinted. Do you know if they're reprinted and thrown away, or are they reprinted and they're reordered? So once again, think a bit about jobs. We're going to go from there, talk a little bit about consumables. So one page of consumables, and then we'll close off with a few items. So with consumables, to look at consumption tracking. And so do you know how many sheets of product you produced on each stock last quarter? How much was wasted? You know, what's your performance on the consumables? Did that switch of house stock really save, or do they seem to be jamming more? You know, the consumable alerts. We talked about our mailroom employee that said, boy, that's, you know, I'm chasing down these block conditions. Can you send me something where I'm about to run out so I can take care of that? Cost analysis. And so again, not talking about an MIS here, but is there a way to associate on my fixed printing, what does it cost me for ink? What does it cost me for a media type? And then can I compare them? Can I look at last month's print compared to this one? Am I seeing some patterns, seeing some trends? And one of the exciting things is a cost simulation. So at some point, will I be able to, based on my real data, play around with some simulations to say, what if I bump down my saturation? I kept it visually pleasing, but I changed my profile. Can I apply that to my history of jobs and see what number falls out to see how much money would I have saved if I used this type of analysis? So what we're going to do is we're going to have a few slides to wrap up. We're going to do a takeaway. And the first one, Boy, if you're new, you got some basics today. You learned about analytics, how it applies to print. You got some assumptions challenged. I hope you were scared a few times. I hope there were a few things that you thought, wow, I wasn't aware that we could be doing this, or I'm not so sure the things I believe to be true really are. We've given you a few questions to ask. Keep us in the industry accountable here, whether it's EFI or another partner. We've hopefully armed you with some things that you can ask, does your product do this? There's just some great information that can be tracked, and we make your work pretty hard to find it sometimes. So keep asking for these things, pull through what you need to make your business run better. I hope there's a little bit of excitement. I'm excited. This is just a great industry. We're starting to build some fun functionality, and be excited to continue to tell you about it as we go on. We've got two more of my slides here, a call to action. Find that analytics solution. So with those questions, find what works for you, whether it's an EFI product or another one, and start building a history. I've got a physician friend that says, everybody's heartbeat's different. Everybody's body works a little differently, but find out what your normal is. Start building that history. What we're seeing now with people that are using the analytic products, we don't have all of the pieces built that we want to build, but by building that history, once the information is in the cloud, once it's stored, you can build future analytics on it to be able to say, wow, I'm looking back with this new utility, and I see that the first Tuesday of every month production drops. That's crazy. Let me track that down. Wow, that's actually the day that I leave the office. Or maybe you find the opposite. That's the day that you're on the shop floor more trying to help. So some of the things that you believe would be true, I'm here to help, you're actually slowing the team down. So once you pick an analytics tool, if I've talked you into that, the hardest thing is to get started. And so just pick one thing and think about what would be most helpful for you. We're going to spend less time on production blocking events. Reseller, vendor, partner, help me. How are you going to help me here? This year we're going to shift 25% of our production to our least expensive printer. Next time I'm not going to be burnt when my configuration goes away, whether it's an operator blasting a profile or a helpful service person re-imaging my system. So with that, let's shift to the question and answer.
All right. Well, that was a lot of great information. So hopefully the audience took some in and can suggest some questions that you have. Andy, if you could go to the next slide. As Andy starts reviewing some of the questions that have come in so far, I want to let you know about another webinar that we're doing here at EFI. This is part of the beginning of that workflow that Andy talked about with Web to Print. It's a session called Understanding USPS Every Door Direct Mail. It's coming up next week. We encourage you to check it out, especially if you do have Web to Print solutions. You might find this very interesting and useful. So when we get this to you, that link will be a live link that will be able to take you to that session. So the first question I'm seeing goes back to Fiery Navigator. Our listener here wants to know, of everything that you showed, what does it do?
Okay, fair question. So let's actually I'll leave that slide up a bit. So I struggled a bit with putting this together. One, I didn't want to give you a sales pitch. Hey, here's what we're building, and it's changing quickly. And so wanted to give you a presentation of what is happening in the industry, and you can get an idea of what we're thinking by these. I encourage you to download the demo product, take a look for yourself. But to give you a candid answer, I think we do a very good job of presenting the information in the dashboard. So to be able to quantify the information, if we looked at our first slide, to tell you what you're doing, we've got a really good start there. The alerts, we're just scratching the surface. You can get some production blocking event alerts. We've spent a lot of time with some of our key partners on being able to configure the Fiery. You know, some of the things you'll see, machine learning, stuff that is coming in the future, you know, really not in our roadmap right now, stuff that's fun to think about. So that's, hopefully that answers that a little bit. Again, we can be happy to talk to you, reach out to the team, reach out to your partner, and we can get in touch to talk more. So, yeah.
Yeah, so next question, we have, these tools sound really great. I am a very secure environment where there's no web access due to HIPAA. What methods are open to me to utilize these powerful tools?
Yeah, great question. So you've got two questions to ask. You know, do you run in the cloud or are you on-prem? Do you run on-premises? And so, you know, when you talk to your vendors, EFI or other, I can tell you what we do, but in general, there's some good information. So because of HIPAA, I don't know the details. I have worked with some customers which their initial thought was, well, we just can't have our data go to the public cloud. One of the benefits being a business-to-business product is we aren't storing customer information. So as far as the, you know, customer credit card, anything like that, the information as far as the, you know, click information about your job, things like that, certainly goes there. The job content doesn't. And so some customers have been able to classify the data in a way that they can put it to the public cloud. Others say, you know, my job name can't go there, so there's ways in our product and others we can work with you to obscure that. And then there's some defense contractor, what have you, HIPAA regulations, just nothing that prints can go to the cloud. The on-premises solution, they exist. It's something that certainly in our roadmap, you know, it's a way we test internally, but something that personally we haven't productized, but would love to talk to you about the use case.
All right. So we have another question about Fiery Navigator. Somebody's asking, can they download it now?
Oh, okay, great. So, yeah, and so what you can do is if you go to that website, efi.com/Fiery Navigator, look around a bit, go to fierynavigator.efi.com. You can click the demo sessions if you want, or if you install Fiery Software Manager, what it will do is install Fiery Navigator for you. It will walk you through a process of creating a passport account. If you install it on Command Workstation, it will auto-detect which Firies are available, make them aware in the cloud, and then your interaction with Navigator will be at the fierynavigator.efi.com site. And from there, you can activate your up to 3 free Firies. If you want to move that free subscription around, you can pick and choose which Firies you use.
All right. We have another question here. This is more general question. The question is, I want to have my team learn more about Fiery. What do you think we should watch in these training sessions that will best show us how to use Fiery better? So World of Fiery webinars have been around for a few years. So we, of course, encourage you to go to webinar.efi.com/World of Fiery. And you'll find all the recorded sessions over the past couple of years. A lot of great information about color management, variable data printing, job preparation, job management. We have a variety of sessions for you. We also have a great page that provides a lot of different resources. It's at resources.efi.com/Fiery. A lot of great links there to help you find white papers, ABCs of color, ABCs of VDP. All our ABC guides are available through there. Just a lot of great information, so I encourage you to go there as well. All right. Let me see. We have another question that just came in. So somebody's, again, going back to Fiery Navigator. saying, so Fiery Navigator is included with our account, no additional fees, so they want to know if it's actually free.
Yeah, so we have so up to 3 Fiery servers. There is no cost for that subscription. So a few of the things we've done is we didn't want to have a license activation code, a dongle, anything like that. So yes, download it. You may use Fiery Navigator for free. You can actively track 3 of your devices. Up to 3 years of data will be collected, and you can store that data. If you haven't cleared your job log on initial connect, the data will be gathered, and it'll, over a process of 100 jobs at a time, start collecting your history and help you build a history even if you're just installing Navigator. If you wish to purchase additional copies, so if you wanted a subscription for your 4th device, the price, the MSRP price is $300 a year per Fiery. So our sales pitch is less than $1 a day. You can add that 4th device. When you get into larger orders, talk to your reseller about 10, 25 pack of volume discounts.
Wonderful. So we have a partner here who wants to know if they can use these products.
You know, that's a great question. It goes a bit back to the HIPAA question as well, as far as to touch on a bit who can see the data, who has access to this. We have built the product so when you install the product, you take that password and email, or password and your login. That's what you use to get access to your data. For a reseller, we are actively looking at user roles, and so speaking of our product line here, is building product that will certainly have a reseller model, and so to be able to use this to help service the Fiery, and that's something that we are working on. Today it is a single user account, so it's a customer account, and you could use this as a reseller, but the interaction with the customer to help manage that user role functionality and that model for a reseller, for a partner, will be coming, but that is not available in the current product.
All right. Well, it looks like that was the last question for us today. So with that, I want to thank our audience and, of course, Andy for a wonderful presentation. I encourage everyone as you're leaving us to take a minute or two to fill out the survey. Let us know what you want to hear about next year in 2017. We look forward to seeing all of you back. As you're leaving, take a note of these links for Fiery Navigator, where you can learn more about Fiery Navigator at efi.com/Fiery Navigator. And as Andy mentioned a couple times, you can also take advantage of the demo session at fierynavigator.efi.com. It's all there, and you can play around with all the data that's already built in for you. So take a look at that. So thanks again. Enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week, and we'll be in touch in early 2017 to let you know about all the great sessions we have coming up. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.